Elena is one of our steering committee member from UNITAR. Thank you for joining us. It's very late for you. Elena has this really exciting new project with St. Lucia, and the country that has challenges of having estimates of population for smaller geographic areas. So there's some discussion about certain data. So Elena, can you share a slide? Are you going to share slides from your side?
Let me try. Yes.
We also have your PowerPoint if you want. We can also do it from our side. Okay. Perfect. So you have 10 minutes.
Yes. I hope you can see the slides.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So let me start by saying that when we started looking into this project, actually, it didn't start with citizen data. But then we realized there was citizen data potential, and actually we would like to develop it more. So I will build up my story a little bit this way. Essentially, what happened was that the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, they are supporting their member states through the Data for Decision Making project funded by the World Bank on strengthening statistical capacities. And they had these components around experimental data projects. And one of the countries selected UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle imagery, as a potential data source. So interestingly here in this project, it didn't start with a problem statement, although they already had the problem statement in mind. It started with a type of innovative data source they wanted to use. And in their case, they purchased a drone, and they knew one of the key challenges they wanted to address was related to population estimates. They did conduct a census, so their latest census goes back to 2022. It's not too old, but now it's been already 5 years. They are also in the process of conducting this year mixed household survey. There is already some also updated listing data available for this survey. And then we also realized as we started discussing with the team, so our task was initially to help them develop a project that we started this work last year. And we are now at the stage where we held the initial workshop to start the project implementation in July. And then when we started looking at it, we realized there was already some work that was ongoing related, done by volunteers, essentially, working as part of a humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. So I think I described a little bit. And then what was going on, the project timeline is 6 months. We launched it end of May. And then in terms of partners, essentially, we've been supporting it UNITAR, but also for those of you who are not aware, UNITAR also hosts UN Satellite Center called UNOSAT. So it's a mixed team. Also, there are UNOSAT colleagues involved in this. Haoi is also involved from UN Statistics Division side, but we also have academic partners. We have ETH Zurich involved in the modeling work. And we've also engaged with the Statistical Institute of Jamaica for knowledge sharing, because they've been doing similar project, but using satellite imagery data, not UAV data. In St. Lucia, what was interesting and what they were explaining, because several teams asked them why you are not looking at the satellite imagery. It's very cloudy quite often. So for them, for some of the areas, it's very difficult to obtain quality satellite imagery data. And we actually had a chance to witness it on our own experience when we went for the workshop in St. Lucia. So in terms of the census, what happened? So essentially, there are challenges related. The basic challenges about population estimates. They had an undercount of estimated undercount of 23.3%, and the way they're estimated it was based on the listings, mapping and listing data. And where they know there are problems is the problems are related where there are significant, the significant undercount comes from the undercoverage of informal settlement areas in different enumeration districts across the country. You can see here that's a snapshot from the provisional census report that shows different undercount rates for different regions. So the idea was then to combine the census data with the UAV data in the first place, but then we realized there was this significant piece of work and already things that already exist thanks to volunteers and OpenStreetMaps. There are building footprints already. And there is a very active team that have been experimenting with different data sources, actually combining and also looking at the possibilities of a modeling work. And they became also the advisors in the project. So the idea was then to develop a model to enable the use of UAV imagery building footprints, and then census, but also household survey data to produce annual population estimate updates. And also a little bit more than that. So far what we conducted this workshop at the end of June, and we sort of had two work streams. The first one focused really more on this main task. And what we've identified sort of as main areas of work was firstly undertaking UAV imagery data collection covering 4 informal settlement areas in selected enumeration districts. Then the second task is related to really building a footprints database that would be hosted by the GIS unit of the National Statistical Office, but by building also on the crowdsourced building footprints data that already exist, that then would need to be corrected. So geographic misfit would need to be corrected based on the newly acquired also UAV data. And then also a lot of labeling is incomplete. And this is where the census data and also recent mixed listing data could be used. And the labeling still needs to be defined, but some of things are sort of quite clear. For example, identifying really residential dwellings as opposed to public and commercial, then to be able to estimate households and then population. Then some of the other features that might be useful for population estimates would be number of floors, for example, the type of roof material and building material that could be relevant for other types of estimations. Then the third task is related really to modeling that is being done with ETH Zurich. The idea here is to have 2 samples where there is ground truth data, essentially where the census data is good and represents well the informal settlements, one of them to be used for training and the other one for validation, and then also have 2 less well-covered areas with no ground truth than for estimation. And then in terms of the initial ideas that we discussed, the work that will be done on modeling, developing deep learning model would be either using built-up detection or using building footprints, or a combination, and then also exploiting other possible, different possible correlations between household size and dwelling characteristics. And these characteristics can also help do some modeling extensions related to estimating other socioeconomic characteristics. And then maybe final bit was also, there is an interest in doing more work on vulnerability assessment approach. So we did have some discussions during this workshop on how vulnerability will be defined and how also we could use more both UAV satellite imagery data, but also citizen data. So I think from the discussions, what comes out, the idea would be to focus really more defining vulnerability as vulnerability of infrastructure and people to risks from climate-related hazards. And then we discussed also how a participatory approach and citizen data could be used for the development of the vulnerability assessment. But this work is less developed. We'll have a follow-up meeting beginning of September with key stakeholders. They have a spatial data infrastructure group that brings different ministries together. And then the idea would be also to discuss how they could engage more also with the communities in developing this vulnerability assessment approach. And I think I will stop here and will be happy to answer any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. So if you can bear with us, and we'll do the Q&As after all the presentations. And the second I would like to, it will be slightly different from the agenda. I would like to invite Dr. Nickelt from BMZ. She's the chief scientist from Germany to present the work on data to policy use cases.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. Much better. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. It's really important to support the development of data into new areas, of data gathering into new areas and data analysis to new areas. So it's also a part, of course, of the ongoing efforts of the German government to strengthen multilateral and multi-stakeholder organizations, definitely necessary in these times. Well, I'm the chief data scientist from BMZ, and there has been a slight rotation because I have to catch a flight. So I think I was the last one originally, unless you want me to do a surprise talk here on a different topic. It's probably be much better with my slides. Yes, that looks like it. Thank you. So this is also an example how governments can learn, I hope at least. Well, we're trying to. Data to Policy and the Data to Policy Navigator is essentially a website that collects data stories of successful applications of data. And we, of course, want to do this in a fair, human-centered, equitable way. But this is something that is much easier to say than to actually do. And so we try to collect those stories that are successful for us ourselves to learn mainly, and also, of course, for anyone else who likes to look these stories up. We had a lot of challenges. You are probably very much aware of those challenges as well. And they tend to, I don't know, add up when you have one problem, you usually have several. So governments definitely, in my view, need to learn, especially also the German government, who is a bit behind in digitization, in my view. And it is our duty as the data labs within German ministries to lead this effort and to make the bureaucracy move forward in a way. But this is also true, of course, for many parts of the world, and this is why we try to present these stories that are actually successful. So the question always is for us, this is a challenge that is not on this slide, is actually how do you scale as a technician, so to say, coming from technical side? I'd always try this. And if you talk about scaling in data stories, it's much less a scaling than it is in commerce or in large applications where you would scale from 5 to 5 million. but we are more scaling from 1 to 5. I think we're happy if we can scale on that very small, in that very small amount. And that is something that we're trying to achieve with this navigator. Okay, let's move forward. So we're collecting the use cases and then try to do the mainstreaming from there in the scale as large as possible. Of course, there's a lot of it is also learning. These stories, data stories that you find at the website, datatopolicy.org, these stories are used for educating everyone who wants to learn about data, on data. And I've picked a use case, I believe, that is very interesting here for this community because it combines citizen data with available data, the data that's already available. Okay, this is the website. You can look it up yourself. I don't think we'll do this. And we have a number of, quite a large number of use cases. Also Ghana, the use case Ghana we will see later on, or hear later on. And I'll just jump into the first one just to show you how this works. This is Mexico City's care infrastructure. A very interesting use case that started with the question how to better include women in just and fair work. And why do they not participate in the work? Well, the answer is probably very unsurprising. It's care, mostly care that is unpaid, care within the family. And we use the citizen data approach here, just a website with questions to answer, to find out whether this assumption is true, and actually also to identify the most necessary, the most urgent needs that would need to change in order to for the women to be able to participate in the work, to work more. Okay, so the interesting method maybe to point out here, which is also an answer to some of the questions I heard earlier, how to deal with diverse and problems of diversity with minorities, marginalized minorities, is to use AI for analysis of answers. So you don't have to. Normally, if you pick quantitative data and numbers, so to say, you usually have to stick to to the most important topics. But if you rely on answers given by the people in their own language, and if you can analyze this using AI, you are able more to also include minority opinions. So this might be an approach to develop or continue to improve analyses. Well, what we did basically was to request the most dire needs, the most the things that the women spend most of the time on, so that they couldn't get the higher paid work that they wanted to do, and then to overlay the answers on a very small scale, actually, with the data that was available, so income, household income, and then from that combination, to identify the best positions for childcare centers. Mexican city government did this, and I think they have now set up 15 childcare centers within these areas that were most needed them, which is a bit of a problem, of course, a geographic problem. If you know Mexico City, also that has to be solved, how to get there in time to the childcare center, and so on and so on. So you needed a lot of different data sources, but the main important addition was the actual need that was communicated by the people that had the need themselves. The citizen or the application that collected this data was set up within the project, was developed within the project. And that worked out rather nicely, supported SDGs 5, 8, and 10, and is, I think, a success story of how to apply citizen data with available data, fill the gaps, and do what we are all aiming to do. Also, we learned a lot from it. Okay, with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much. It's only 6.5 minutes. Fantastic. I mean, of course, I'm going to have a question right away, say later on, but how do we get initiative on your platform? I see Ghana's already there. Thank you so much. Maybe just because you will have to leave for the airport quickly, maybe if there's any burning questions for Dr. Nickhout? Anyone?
Other than that, the website is there for you to look at, and there are many, many more interesting stories. So
There's also email address on the next slide. If you're interested in reaching out to, if you click, yes, to Data to Policy, and
right, you
Dr.
can also
Nickhout
find-
is right there. Heather, anything online? No, okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, let's move on to the next presenter. We have Juliet. Juliet, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I
Juliet.
hope you can see me.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay.
You're going to share your slides from your side?
Yes, I will try to. I'm preparing
Okay, so
to share my
Julius,
screen.
Julius leading the citizen data work at DANE, the statistical office in Colombia.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, let me see. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you can see my screen now.
Almost.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, we see
PowerPoint.
a number of screens with PowerPoints.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I lost my presentation. Let me see if. Okay, I hope you are seeing my presentation now.
Yes, now I can
Yes?
see your presentation. Perfect. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay.
Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to share our experience. I just want to highlight some initiatives that we are developing around citizen data. And to start, it's important to establish what this is important for us. Is because it's in our statistical law, which includes the principle. We have the principle of inclusion that mandates that all the producers of official statistical information should represent our country's diversity in terms of our populations in the production of statistics. We also have the statistical culture mandate that invite us to support citizens and institutions in the adequate use of the statistical information we produce. And we have the goal in our national statistical system of developing a framework for citizen data. So here we have some initiatives that DANE is being developed. The first idea is to establish that citizen data was already happening, not because we know the Copenhagen framework, but because we need to improve our engagement with communities in order to visualize them in our statistics. So we have two initiatives that are well established. The multidimensional WAJU registry, that it was a strategy to collect data from indigenous community in the north part of our country. And we also have the traditional midwives initiatives, that this is a strategy to improve the coverage of our vital statistics in Afro-descendant and indigenous communities. We have initiatives that are being developed but are not that well established. We have the popular economy information system, and for that, we are mapping civil society organizations that produce information on informal economy in order to start the work with them around this important topic. We also have the collaborative mapping that is key for us in order to facilitate the process of collection of data, in particular for areas of difficult access. And the App Diversa, that is an initiative that we have to capture data about some SDGs based on perception of information. So to go a little bit deeper in the multidimensional WAJU registry, this is a registry that we developed in conjunction with the Wayuu authorities. The Wayuu is an indigenous community that is based in the north part of our country and in the department of La Guajira. And in order to develop this registry, we have to have 21 meetings with the Wayuu authorities and leaders from this indigenous community to get agreements in terms of the questionnaire. So the questionnaire, the questions that we include were defined in conjunctions with the communities. So we have a questionnaire that includes more than 200 questions. Wayuu authorities propose topics such as ancestral knowledge, physical and economic barriers for accessing water, and belonging to the territory. So the next adjustment that we need to execute in order to facilitate the integration of the communities in the statistical process was to adjust all our contracting processes in order to facilitate the engagement of the community members in the component of the capturing information. In the 2024, we start the collection process. We have more than 80% percentage of the operational team, people belonging to the Wayuu indigenous community, and these people speak Wayuu Naiki, that is the traditional language of this community. So this facilitates the process of capturing the information in the households of the community. And we are already integrating the results of this register with other information from the National Statistical System that is based on administrative records in order to visualize the situation of these indigenous communities in this information system, because we need to ensure that these communities get access to water, health, education, and to facilitate that, it's important not only to have the information that we collect with them, but also to make use of different data that is already in our national statistical system being produced for those communities. In terms of the lessons learned and best practices of this process, I want to highlight the active listening and consensus building with the authorities. In the process of the definition of the questionnaire, as you can imagine, having a questionnaire of 200 questions is very demanding and requires a lot of revisions and adjustments in order to facilitate the process of collection of data. Of course, the Wayuu leadership, because the community, it was not a passive actor, it was very active in the definition of the instruments, but also in the identification of the areas where the communities were based. So for that reason, the mapping was really important in order to structure the collection strategy, and also it was key to support the logistics of transport. The clear language, the comprehensive and honest communication among the parts was key in order to execute this strategy. The trust and continuity, the participation build trust and sustainability of this initiative through time, and the citizen and communities evaluation of and sharing the results of the process was also vital to ensure the success. In terms of the second case, I want to speak about the vital event notification strategy for ethnic racial groups. As I was mentioned, the engagement with communities was key in order to visualize these particular populations and situations. So the objective of this strategy is to strengthen the reporting and registration of vital statistics, births and deaths from ethnic and racial groups with high rates of non-reporting due to conditions such as high geographic dispersion, difficult access, geographic and cultural barriers, and limited infrastructure and institutional presence of health sector. The benefits of this strategy for people in reservations and collected territories is the recognition of civil rights for newborns, the full identification for inclusion in health, education, and service programs, the strengthen the role of ethnic and racial authorities through effective participation in the notification and registration strategy, and of course, the improvement of official statistics. So this is a scheme of how the initiative works. Dane identifies the communities, start the training and capacity building with the community members, and we develop the notification forms. These notification forms are distributed among the communities we have previously agreements, and when the vital event occurs without the contact with the health sector, the designated person in the community report the event in the forms that were designed by Dani, and these forms are then collected and submitted to the information system of the vital statistics. So this allows us to have this data in the production of our statistics, but also allows the members of the communities to receive the form that confirms the civil register of the birth, and that facilitates the access of the children to the health sector. So this is a very important case because represents a solution for a very critical situation of access to the health services from particular populations in our country, but also, of course, strengthens the production of vital statistics. The third initiative I want to talk about is the App Diversa. It's a web application through which we hope to measure SDGs indicators, particularly the ones that are related with perception. So we are working right now in the collection of relevant information on experiences of discrimination among people over 18 years. And this strategy is being developed with the engagement of the civil society organizations. We are discussing the questions, the structure of the questionnaire, how the application should work to facilitate the engagement of the citizens, and we hope to have a pilot by the end of this year. Finally, I just want to highlight the importance of having a framework to foster these initiatives to go further and to be included in our national statistical system. So that's the reason why we are also working in the development of a maturity model to facilitate the process of assessment of the quality of the initiatives, and to facilitate also the process of include them in our national statistical system. So I hope I bring examples of integration of citizen data and administrative records that are being key to represent populations that need attention and intervention in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. Sorry, forgot the clap. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the DANE team. Thank you so much. Have a great flight, safe flight back home. Now, sorry for keep moving around the agenda speakers because we have different time constraints. So next, I would like to move to joint presentation of my colleague Luis and then Flavia. Flavia is from Statistics Canada. And Flavia, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you.
So, Luis said that you'll go first and then Luis. So would you like to share your screen from your side?
Working on that.
So the colleagues will be talking about standards and methods for data integration. If they are, how to make data more interoperable if we're talking about data integration. So Flavia, you go first. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you see my screen?
Yes,
okay,
if you can make it into the PowerPoint.
Yep. There. Okay, thank you for having me. I'm gonna change a bit the tone of the presentation because I want to just introduce first the DDI CDI standard, very high level, for a few minutes so that there is some context of what Luis is gonna present afterwards, which is the cross-domain interoperability framework. So this standard is the new product that has been developed by the DDI Alliance, the Data Documentation Initiative. And the CDI stands for cross-domain integration because it's been created with the idea of integrating different standards and different products for different contexts cross-domain. So it complements what other products of the DDI Alliance are doing to go beyond the social, behavioral, and economic domain, which has been so far the DDI products focus. So it allows for references to these other DDI products. So if you have some data described with these products, you can integrate them with a cross-domain integration with CDI. And also integrates with other standards beyond the DDI Alliance. So web standards, especially RDF, PROV, and others like that, SCOS, they are all part of the environment that you can set up using DDI CDI. So it focuses on multidisciplinary and interoperable data sharing and integration. It centers on the description of variables, structures, and datum level information. So basically, you can describe your data at different levels of details depending on your needs. It provides for lossless and automated restructuring of the data. So if you want to move from one type of data structure to another, you can do that using CDI. You can describe the relationship between the two data structures, and also you can do the transformations using the process model that is included in the standard to do the transformation of the data. Supports also the description of these generic flows for provenance. So this process model can be used for provenance information, not just for doing transformations on the fly, but also for describing what happened in the past to a specific data. And it has multiple syntax representations, so you are not tied up to any specific syntax representation like XML or RDF. So we have a few actually already implemented, but more can be developed based on the conceptual UML model. So we have a model that is actually the standard, the specification that is part of the standard, and then these syntax representations can be created as necessary for different uses and in alliance with the model. So as long as the model is satisfied in all these syntax representations, they are all valid. So this is at the very high level, the structure of the standard. You have 4 main areas. On the right-hand side in blue, you have the elements for describing the data. So the data is organized in data sets. There are records in the data sets. It has data structures to describe the data types and the variables associated with the data. There are keys in the relational database sense. So what you expect to find in any standard describing data. What we are adding to that is this notion of variables that appears at different levels, instance, represented, and conceptual. We are not going to go into the details of what those levels mean, but the lowest level, the instance variable, is the one that is directly associated to the data set. So that's the one that you need in all situations. The other ones are optional and are for managing the variables and reusing them. And those variables, the instance variable in particular, is the one that links the data with what the data represents, the semantics and the different ways of representing the content in the actual data set. So for instance, universes and populations, when you're describing data sets associated with the statistics, value domains, which are the accepted values that any given variable can take, codes, categories, concepts, so the semantics and the way they are represented, they are covered in that area, which is, again, very tightly coupled to the data, but it can be also used independently. So it depends on the use case. And then at the top in green, you have the provenance model, which is essentially capturing rules, flows, agents, transformation activities. So everything, again, that you can expect to find in those provenance models, but in a way that is integrated with the data, the variables, and the semantics. And then you see in the gray boxes all around the different standards that can be used to link to CDI, or that CDI can link to in order to express the model in some machine actionable way. So in the context of CDI, we've been working on this cross-standard interoperability for data integration areas. Like there are a couple of projects working on that. Luis has been working on this for a few years now. And the idea is to focus on data integration, because the space of data management or data usage is so big that we wanted to just start with something that was very necessary in the case of different areas. So data integration across domains seems to be something that is really on demand, and it's hard to do if you don't have a standard describing the cross-domain aspects. And even if you do, we are still trying to address some of the problems that arise. And we have a large number of use cases. As I mentioned, the UN Statistical Division's SDGs, which is what Luis has been involved in. The ILO has data catalogs with thousands of files describing one standard, and we want to use another one to represent them so that they can be integrated in other environments. World Fair projects and now Fair Plus projects also using CDI in the context of the cross-domain interoperability framework, CDIF. So, and in all these cases, DDI, CDI comes like it's useful as a Rosetta Stone for mapping and integration. So rather than doing all these mappings one-to-one across disciplines, which can create dozens and dozens of mappings, what we do is use DDI, CDI as the central hub for those mappings and map each individual one to CDI. Therefore, we reduce the number of potential mappings and the confusion that can be created with that number of mappings. So using CDI as this type of Rosetta Stone, as I said, simplifies the work a lot. Some prerequisites to end for effective data integration. We need to describe the data well enough so that it is integration ready. So we don't need to describe everything in the data, just what's necessary to understand it and integrate it with other data. We need to define the mappings, harmonize concepts when possible, because it's not always possible, but if not, the mappings would do cover a lot of ground when harmonization is not available or not doable. And we need to provide the descriptions for provenance to make sure that a user of a data set understands what happened to it, where it's coming from, how it's been transformed, what's the quality, and so on. So on that note, I would let Luis continue with the use case. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation and building on Flavio's presentation. Now, I just want to show to you one application. As Flavio was mentioning, we've been working on the use of these ideas about cross-domain data integration using CDI as our Rosetta Stone. So we spoke about, we saw all the different initiatives around citizen data. So, and the question is, how do we integrate citizen data with official statistics? There's a lot that needs to happen in terms of implementation of standards and harmonization of data. That needs to happen on the side of the citizen data, but there's also a lot that has to happen on the side of official statistics so that we make the data also linkable and interoperable, and we are able to bridge this gap. So I will speak a little bit about the experience in trying to make statistical data closer and easier to integrate to other data sources, including citizen data. So the challenges that we have, data, as we all know, is in silos across organizations, different formats, different standards, different units of analysis, different levels of quality. Metadata is often missing or unstructured, and there is where this cross-domain interoperability framework comes to play. So to make our data resources fair, as we were listening earlier, across different domains and infrastructures. So this cross-domain integration framework is very rich, encompassing different aspects of that integration. So it is about providing the right context, the right structure, the right semantics, looking at the provenance of the data, issues of governance like licensing, conditions of use, issues of definitions, control vocabularies for different uses and from different communities, so that the data becomes discoverable, that its quality and its usability can be assessed by the different users, that the data can be accessed, and it can be integrated and packaged together in ways that are useful for policymaking, for decision making. So these recommendations from the framework, from the cross-domain integration framework, some of them are really generally applicable for anybody working with data, not only official statistics, not only citizen data. It's about expressing our data and our metadata in many different languages, in many different standards. So we cannot stick to our small bubble of our community standards. We need to go across and also express our data in ways that can communicate to other standards in different levels of granularity, but trying to go to the finest one possible to allow to compose data from different sources, and using identifiers that are persistent, that are dereferentiable, meaning that we are always able to refer to the same thing with a specific, with an unambiguous, in an unambiguous way. So what does it mean? Making the data integration ready. Assessing and understanding the data sets we're working with, harmonizing the granularity and the representation of the different concepts. I mean, I was just reflecting when listening to Juliette's presentation about the need to also consider the different ways in which data are conceptualized. Different groups talk to different work or see the world using different taxonomies. No, we need to be able to connect the conceptualization of the data and the representation of the data, enriching with context, as Flavio was saying, describing the data well enough, and then also providing ways of tracing back where the data is coming from, the provenance. So one way we are trying to move into this direction is a project that Flavio mentioned we've been working on for already a few years, and I'm happy also to be here in this room with Francesca, who started all this in the statistics division, and then with our colleagues Yongji, Heather. I saw her around. So this is a massive work involving many people. What we are trying to do is to bring statistical data closer to a state where it can be integrated with other data sources. So making the data not only available, but also accessible, usable, understandable. And so what you see here is just a screenshot of the platform to give you an idea that this is the type of end result that comes from working behind the scenes on the back end on implementing those standards. And what is entailed here is describing the data. So there is homework to be done before we can get to that type of product, which is describing the structure, how the data is organized, the dimensions that are universal across different data sources, geography, time, other dimensions like sex, age, etc. That's where the standards come into play. And as Flavio was mentioning, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of aligning the different terminologies and tracking how these concepts are created, split, merged, transformed to get to the final product, to make it also machine actionable. So the role of the classifications and vocabularies is very, very crucial. And what I want to highlight here is that we need to also start looking into vocabularies, classifications, taxonomies outside our immediate domain. So we need to start to talking other communities language by looking into their vocabularies and mapping those vocabularies to each other.
Louis,
I think I'm running out of time, so I will just go to some final set of open questions. Now, how we overcome data silos? What's the role of civil society, research, and academia in linking all these different standards? and how can we use these emerging technologies to scale and be able to build those links more effectively and at speed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really also enjoyed the cozy moment. Now we would like to move to the about your own data comments. Now, the final, but not the final, but Umar, Ghana has done a lot of work on citizen data, all fronts. So please give us a flavor here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, the definition of citizens data is already well known in this room, so I wouldn't attempt, once Young is here, I wouldn't attempt to provide that. So first, we need to look at Ghana's motivation for venturing into citizens data work. Following the adoption of the SDGs and our assessment of the capacity of the country for monitoring the SDGs, we realized that going our traditional data systems alone, we wouldn't be able to monitor some indicators. So we decided to explore new sources and types of data. So we wanted to see how citizens data provide timely, local level and actionable data for monitoring the SDGs. We wanted to understand the kinds of technology-based tools that were appropriate for representative data collection and the pathways to address data quality issues that emerge. The roadmap to Ghana citizens data journey. To this point, we have 5 different projects. We started in 2020 with our first pilot on gender-based violence, where we tried to monitor 4 SDG indicators, and then with the other one on Clean Up Ghana, which also was supposed to be used to monitor SDG 11.6.1, which is waste, municipal waste collection. And from this, one of key things that stood out was the gender-based violence one. After the data collection, we triangulated this with administrative data that existed, and we realized this was much more powerful and representative in providing information on gender-based violence. The one on waste management, it was not successful in monitoring the SDGs indicator, but it was important to note that that application was very important for municipalities to engage with citizens in waste management. In fact, as we speak this week, 2 municipalities have reached out to us to see how we can help them leverage this application to engage with the citizens within their municipalities for waste management. Then in 2021, we piloted the use of data that is already collected by civil society organizations for marine litter monitoring. And this has been an award-winning project. We have a lot of scientific papers we have written on the methodology. Then in 2023, in Ghana, we have, in the Local Government Act, 3% of the resources are expected to be ring-fenced to provide some services to persons with disabilities. There have been a lot of assessment on the impact of this. So what we sought to do, because we realized in the literature review that mostly the studies that have been done to assess the effectiveness of that policy targeted beneficiaries of these resources. So we wanted to reach out to persons with disability across board to understand how this particular policy was impacting. And the assessment, for the first time, we engaged with the 12 main domains of civil society organizations with disabilities in Ghana. And that helped us to incorporate in the application sign language interpretation, and to the extent that different persons with disabilities were able to engage with this. And it was very useful to indicate here that when we completed this work, the civil society organization on persons with disability use it to support their case in the review of the guidelines for the disbursement of the fund. And so that, then the last one we implemented last year was on SDG 1662, which we work with the UNDP on. And this sought to measure citizen satisfaction with public services. And because we already had experience of incorporating sign language, we did incorporate it in this as well. And it is important to note that throughout the entire process, it is co-designed and co-owned with all the major stakeholder groups that we identify. And key processes that we followed have been outlined in our process documentation. And it is important for me to mention at this point that this was very important for us, especially when we're doing the situation analysis, to identify the enablers and the barriers to the citizens data project. And that helped us develop different functionalities that help different groups to engage with the process. The second important thing is an effective public education and awareness campaign that gets different population subgroups, especially those who ordinarily would be out of any normal data collection process, to be engaged in the process. So we realized that through this, if we had not, for instance, in the case of Ghana, incorporated the functionalities for people who use basic phones, 56% of the respondents wouldn't have been engaged in this process. And so the use of what we call in Ghana as YAM phones, which is the basic phone, allowed people to use it. And we also interpreted all these into the local languages, and that allowed different people to engage with the application. And for the first time, we realized that 25% of persons who, for instance, under gender-based violence, who experience gender-based violence were persons with disability, which was higher than what we captured in the sample surveys, the DHS, for instance. Then we try to assess the quality of the data. So in this case, the two districts where we piloted it, 2021, Ghana had conducted a population housing census. So we pooled the census data for those two districts. And we realized, and then with the Citizens Data Project, we realized that there wasn't much variation in terms of the disaggregation of the population. Again, in both districts, we realized from the census that 3% of the population in those districts are persons with disabilities. But because of the functionalities we had incorporated in the Citizens Data Project, we had up to 12% of persons with disabilities engaging with this project. So which means that that was good. Then prior to the Citizens Data Project on 16/2, in 2019, we had done a nationally representative sample survey. So we tried to do a triangulation to understand whether the data we had collected using the citizens data were very similar, and they produced results that could be used. And we realized that they were very good in terms of comparing the lessons from both places. And as you may know, SDG 16/2 is looking at health, is looking at education, satisfaction with health, satisfaction with education, and satisfaction with government-issued ID. And interestingly, when we published this one in September 2024, shortly after that, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, because one of the key things we realized here was that a lot of people were discouraged, especially for going for their passport and all that. And so the minister at the time set up a platform for people to get their passport easy, because many passports will remain uncollected. Then the current Minister for Foreign Affairs has also reduced the cost of procuring passports in Ghana. And we want to believe that to some extent, the work we had done, people had used it to demand these services. So currently, one of the things we identified that is common in all our citizens project, which we think everybody needs to take note of, is the inclusiveness of the development of whatever solution that you have to do, both at the local and the national level, and understanding the interest of all the key stakeholders, and ensuring that there's a feedback loop throughout the entire process. And and making sure that you minimize the cost to the individuals who will use the applications so that they would be very much interested in this. Now, what's the way forward for Ghana? Ghana today presented our VNR, the 2025 VNR, and Ghana has prioritized 5 SDG targets for the last 5 years. And SDG 16.6 is one of those targets. Ghana has already done an assessment before we chose these 5 targets. And we realized that SDG 16.6 has the most synergies, cutting across 72 other targets within the SDG framework. And that's about 43% of the SDGs. And we believe that for this to make an impact, we need to have regular monitoring of this at the local level, because it has to do with building strong institutions. And sample surveys would not, and I mean, the traditional survey system will not be appropriate due to the cost. Ghana has 261 local governments. And if you want to conduct a sample survey in each of these local government, you can understand the cost involved. So we see citizens data, and especially this particular piece of work, to be the one that will be most appropriate for us to integrate in our data collection system going forward, to be able to monitor this annually and provide feedback to government on the implementation of this SDG indicator. So we also have the technical, because we try to document the processes so that this can be replicated by anybody. And so in the middle is the process report, the far left is the technical report, and the other one on the right is where we compare the sample survey results with the citizens data results, so that those who are interested in this can have access to them. Ghana is looking forward to scale this up across the country. We're already working with the UNDP, and we are looking forward to have other collaborators to support us to scale this work up across the entire country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Umar. Now, I would like to open the floor. There are a few questions online, but let's see whether anything. Yes, you would you like to? No.
I had a question about DDI, CDI. So I work in a place where I have to combine a lot of data sets, often like vital statistics, household surveys, and also data that's more granular, like including like satellite images and things like that. And a common issue that we face is that there's no, it's not always comparable, like something will be at a zip level, something might be at a census tract level. The same variables might be named very differently, like including gender across different data sets. So like a very basic question, but is the aim of the DDI, CDI to kind of make this uniform by having like a guideline or a framework at a high level? Or is it also using any ML or AI or other techniques to automatically help us unify these data sets? So if we're hard coding this, I'm wondering how we might scale the model. So yeah, that was my question.
Collect a few questions before we get back to the presenters. Jessa next.
Yeah, thank you. Jess Encarnacion from UN Women. So I think question primarily to Elena or probably to Juliet or Omar, please feel free to likewise respond. I think just 2 questions linking with our morning session and this afternoon session, particularly on data quality, in the sense that there's a lot of discussion of obviously in this session on data integration, and just wondering whether at least an overarching principle or overarching decision-making process or thought process, and what makes that citizen data of quality to be integrated with other data sources and vice versa. So I think that's one. And then 2, I think also in the morning session, there was also a question on power redistribution concerns or arguments, basically, or advocacy. And I think there's really strong emphasis on how citizen data has been integrated into official statistics. So just also wondering in terms of sort of balance within the 2-way integration, where in this time official statistics being intentionally integrated in local narratives for the citizens' own empowerment. So that's my question.
Thank you, Jessa. There's another question, please.
Thank you so much. Let me first appreciate Ghana for a wonderful work you are doing. God will continue to strengthen you. Thank you so much. My question now is about the data, most especially with people living with disability. I think they are being neglected. Where I come from, I belong to civil society, not governmental organization. And I discovered that majority of the people, the class of people living with disability are lacking a lot of things that we are able-bodied, have access to. My question now is, we're talking about data being available. What measure are we putting in place for accessibility for people living with disability? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything from the floor? Should we go one round or anything, Heather, from the chat? There was one question earlier, I think it's very much linked to this, is from Nicole. Hi, Nicole. And is the challenges, I think it's pretty much to our NSO colleagues here, Omar and Juliet, and others, challenges in integrating citizen data into with other data sources, and also the use of citizen data for policy making. What are the challenges? You mentioned overcoming this engagement, so maybe point out a few challenges from here. Anything, other questions, or should we give the... Oh, that was the one. Okay.
The other one was just, Omar can share the QR codes for the free report.
Okay, so now who would like to go start? Maybe Omar and Luis, and then we go to Julia. Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I will start with the one on the disabilities. I think it is something that national statistical offices need to be deliberate about, because with our work, Ghana has a strong civil society organization on SDGs. For the first time in the history of Ghana census taking, the civil society platform had a representation at the highest level of the census, which is at the steering committee level. And that ensured that what needs to be incorporated to ensure that issues of persons with disabilities have been incorporated were there. And after we published the census results, it was also translated into briefs for persons with disabilities. And currently working with the UN systems, we have done an assessment of disability data integration across the data ecosystem in Ghana. And as a result of that assessment, we currently have developed a framework for disability data compilation in Ghana, which we are expecting that later this year it will be launched. Now, in terms of the data integration, and I'll tie the data integration and data quality together, you realize that statisticians are a bit conservative, right? We don't easily open up to new things that especially have not been tested well and adapted. And so our experience, the first thing is to even get over the that hurdle of institutional buy-in within the NSO to see the value of the citizens' data. And the good thing is that you need to approach it from an angle of its complementarity to our traditional data systems, but not to replace our traditional data systems. And that is where, for instance, when we did a triangulation with administrative data on gender-based violence, we realized that the citizens' data had a much more strength than a system like a country like Ghana. Our administrative data system is not very strong. And on survey that collects data, which is of high quality on gender-based violence, it's also reported at the regional level. Unfortunately, decision-making is at the district level. That's at the local level where we don't have the data. And so once you're able to come with this narrative, then you're able to get that kind of engagement. Now, tied to the quality of data, one of the things why we decided to go into this space, we realized that CSOs were already in the citizens data space. But we told ourselves national statistical offices are those who guard the sanctity and the quality of data. So if we are delving into the citizens data landscape, we can already, as part of the design, incorporate functionalities and processes to minimize the possible issues of data quality. And then we can continuously improve as we learn over time. So this is what we are doing. We wouldn't say that at this point we are up there, because the principles of quality that have been identified in the framework, in the Copenhagen framework, we have incorporated them all in our citizens data project. And we believe that it is a process, and hopefully one day we will get there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll try just to complement what Omar has so brilliantly explained, and maybe go a little bit on the side of the technical interoperability and how can we contribute to make this happen. So there are a lot of questions, and I'll try to cover a few points on each. So starting with the disability data. Well, I'm not an expert in disability data, but maybe a adjacent topic here is how do we make data accessible to everyone? So the accessibility to the data for people with disability and for people in any kind of group. So this is also the technical work on applying standards, making our data machine readable, AI ready, is a very important step into making our data accessible, because then we can make our data work with assistive technologies to be able to have readers for the data that allow for people who have visual impairment or other kinds of impairments to also work with the data and access the data. So that's an angle here that requires technical work on standards to make our data accessible. So that, as a side note, I hope that complements a bit the discussion. Now, on the standards, to the question on the CDI cross-domain interoperability standard, CDI, DDI, CDI. There are many pieces in this puzzle, and it's about first describing our data from whatever community we are in. So citizen data holders, official statistics, business community, whatever it is. The first step is to describe properly our data. And this is where this kind of standards come in, to allow to express in a commonly understandable way what our data is about, how our data is structured, what are their components. And then in addition to the standard CDI, DDI CDI, which is about describing the data, then it comes mapping the data. So it's the standard for describing the data, and then the mappings between different vocabularies and different standards. So this is, as my colleague Flavio was saying, a Rosetta Stone, where if we are able to describe first properly our data, then we are able to build the mappings, and then this data becomes, can talk to each other. So we are working not only in implementing the standard for describing the data, we are also working on aligning these vocabularies. And there is where our work, our boring work, say in statistical classifications comes in, because it's not so different from, say, the vocabularies, taxonomies that are also used in different policy areas. So we need to make those vocabularies machine readable, interoperable, so that we can build those mappings and make that AI ready. So then comes the artificial intelligence to allow us to be faster in establishing those semantic links, and then exploiting those semantic links to produce visualizations, to produce text analytics, and so on. So it's a lot of small pieces in this puzzle, and everyone has to contribute their part, describing their data, making their vocabularies, their taxonomies, their thesauri, and so on, accessible and interoperable, and then working together in validating each other how we are connecting our data sets. Yeah, maybe I'll stop here. I hope this helps a bit.
Thank you, Luis. Now I'd like to go to our colleagues online, Juliet and Elena.
Okay, thank you. I want to comment something on the quality management. So in particular, for the strategy of vital statistics, we try to consider the quality management by design in terms that we need to design forms that were feasible to implement in the context that these communities operates. So, for example, we need to take into account the language that we are going to use in the definition of the forms. We also need to reduce the amount of questions that we include in the form in order to facilitate the filling by the person designated in the community. And we need to make a lot of training and generation of capacity with the communities in order to facilitate the understanding on the form and the process of filling the key information about the vital event. So this is the first actions that we execute to ensure quality, because if we design a form like the ones we use to report these events with the institutional sector, so this will create a lot of trouble in the moment of implementation by the communities. So the process of facilitating the designing of the form was central part of the ensuring the quality, creating an instrument that is pertinent for the conditions in which it will operate. And the second quality management that we have is in the process of when the vital event occurs and the designated person fill the form and the form is scanned and sent through DANI, the specialists of the vital statistics from DANI make the revision of the information, and only if it's necessary, they return the information to be complete or corrected, because it's really difficult to think in like a making revisions, additional revisions, when the information is captured, taking into account the context and situation of these communities. So I will say that it's important to design instruments that are pertinent. So in this manner, you reduce the amount of quality controls or quality checks in the like a next moments or steps of the statistical production. And I think there was another question around like the empowerment or increase of the capacities in terms of communities to validate their rights and increase their capacities for agenda. In terms of the multidimensional WADU registry, this is key because this indigenous community, it was invisibilized from the statistics, and because of that, they were having difficult situations regarding malnutrition, regarding lack of access to health services or education services. So allowing them to participate in the process of defining what is important today to measure in terms of the statistics, and then with the help and the technical system of DANI to develop these questionnaires and apply them in a collection process that also were carried out with the participation of the members of the community that speak the language. So this facilitates and make a more like a easy to capture the data from, for example, the older person of the communities. So in thanks to this process, right now the indigenous communities has data about their conditions and could promote like a different conversations in the political arena to start changing these situations that they are facing. So I think like the key element here is to hear the communities in order to ensure that the data you are going to collect and generate based on those initiatives are then will have the impact that they need in order to change and transform their realities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. I hear from both Omar, Juliet and Omar, the importance of NSO, how important, how crucial it is to have national statistical offices. Elena.
Yes, thank you very much. I will try to answer the question from Jesse about the quality. I was thinking initially when we talk, for example, about OSM building footprints, I think the sort of our discussions and analysis so far has shown that maybe there are three aspects of quality at which we could look. The first one is related to the, like we can say, accuracy. There, the situation in terms of building footprints, following the analysis of our satellite imagery experts, was that they were quite good. There was some need also for corrections, but overall, it was quite good. The second aspect was related to the frequency and maybe also then the timeliness of availability of this data. And here, I think it may be more problematic because the way I understand, for example, the HOT team works, it's really in the context of disasters, when volunteers come together to map the areas to support disaster risk response. And then there is not necessarily regular frequency or updates, whereas the phenomenon that the CSO is trying to address in St. Lucia is exactly very rapidly evolving informal settlements, that they are very quickly changing and they would like to have annual estimates. And that's one of the reasons where they thought a combination of the existing citizen data with UAV imagery and updates would be good. So citizen data here is very useful because you don't need to sort of reinvent the wheel. You can already use the existing building footprints, but then you need to make some corrections and also update them using UAV. And then the final point, I guess it's probably related to the completeness. And here there are more issues. That is the description. For example, it would be really important for population estimates to distinguish clearly residential dwellings. And right now the databases are not complete. So that's one area where CSO would need to do more work. And then the second point, maybe when it comes to vulnerability assessment, I think here citizen participatory approach and citizen engagement would be extremely important to address the relevance dimension of quality. And this is why I think we are still in the discussions with the government, and that's one thing that we would still need to help them understand better when they will be discussing the vulnerability assessment, that it should not be only government-led, but they actually need to engage communities to make sure that the way they measure vulnerability, it's really relevant also for the communities, including these more vulnerable communities and informal settlements, and how then it can help in terms of the government services and the response and policies.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's very late, close to midnight from your side. I would like to, we're actually 5 minutes above our time frame for closing the day. But before we close, we're going to skip the summary of the sessions, and because they're all in Yongyi's closing remarks. So, yes, so the floor is yours. Thank you, Howie. There's a high expectation. I don't think I can read it because it's such a rich day with the discussions, sharing experience, and I really appreciate everyone. And thank you so much for all the speakers, panelists, organizers, and also participants in the room and online, and to share your like a really real experience. This is truly demonstrate how citizen data can help the support the whole data ecosystem and make sure the marginalized population group has been heard and seen, and also act as an agency and the changes. So we're at a very critical moment because we're only 5 years left of to the 2030 deadline. So we know that the whole SDG progress is like behind in many of the countries, but we also have to celebrate a lot of the achievement that we have made. We can see this today, but and in the remaining 5 years that we can use what experience we learned and to accelerate. And I think citizen data can play a very critical role in this process of acceleration and provide the needed policy, the data for policy making. And so this year we reached a milestone for the citizen data that the Copenhagen framework on citizen data was endorsed by the Statistics Commission in March. So this is really a great achievement for our community, and also welcomed by many CSOs. So from now on, I think what's most important, how we can turn this framework into reality. We already see this happening, like from today's shared with so many experiences, but we need to do more. And we also, in today we see the launch of the working group of the gender and citizen data. We also have the tool of, I think the e-learning tool. We have the guidance on quality assurance, data quality. We also have citizen engagement. So the platform also continue improve our support to the needed methodology and collaboration platform. And so we will invite you to help us to build this support platform together. So we thank all the partners and the NSOs, the CSOs, the academia to help us together to build this community and to work together to ensure the citizens are involved in the whole data value chains. So we can use this power of engagement and partnership and to push the development agenda forward. So lastly, I would like to thank my colleague, the steering committee member of the collaborative who behind this whole event, Peter from ICSC as the co-chair, Francesca from Open Data Watch, Jessa, Yoan Women, and Elizabeth and CBM Global, and Ravi from the World Bank, and also most importantly, also like a lot of the colleagues who work behind the scene, and I can Santani and Gerald. Thank both of you from Young Women, Raquel from where that I saw her early. Raquel from Open Data Watch, and my colleague Heather and Howie out here. And thank you so much also our consultant Samira, who supported the secretary for the whole event. So I also would like to thank the Hewlett Foundation and Google.org for their general support for the citizen data work. So with that, I would wish everyone who, I know it's a long day and who travel from far to the HLPF, this is your last day, and thank you for spending your last minute of the HLPF with us. And for a colleague online, and thank you for joining the event and stay late with us. And so thank you so much, and have a good evening and safe travel back home. Thanks.